All right, welcome to the Fox Den. I am sitting down this morning with Hyla Pollak. Hyla, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, let's jump in. Where are you connecting from?
I'm I usually connect from Toronto, but I'm currently lucky enough to be at a cottage, which is about an hour north of Toronto. So,
Beautiful, beautiful. So let's just jump in here. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do for a living.
yeah, so I'm an HR professional. And I've sort of moved my career now into a fractional career, and consulting. So, because I spent many, many, many years working within industries, in organizations, and decided a couple of years ago to pivot and start working for myself, doing consulting and fractional work, fractional HR. So that's what I do.
What does that mean, fractional HR?
So
Does that mean
fractional,
you do fractions while you're doing the HR?
I
That's a little
mean,
bit
my
confusing.
son is the math teacher, not me. So problem. It's a good thing I don't have to do that. No, fractional basically means it could actually mean a number of things. For me personally, right now, I'm working 3 days a week for an organization that doesn't need full-time HR. Um, so fractional to them right now is 3 days a week, and I'm on a 1 year contract, but it could be a 3 month stint. It could be advisory. So you could be working like, 1 day a month for people. It really is such a broad definition now. And like I said, it's just a perfect opportunity for me because it gives me flexibility and I can say yes or no to whatever roles that I get offered.
So you're kind of a freelance person, you could say?
Yeah, I mean it could be project based even. So my fractional, like I said, right now is 3 full days per week and I'm like embedded within the organization. I am their head of HR. I also have the other 2 days to be flexible. And what I personally offer is something called HR on demand. Got the idea when I was watching Netflix one day, and it's really I'm basically on call. If a founder of a startup or if a CEO or if an HR professional needs some help and guidance in HR, they can book a 30-minute call with me and we try to solve the problem within that 30 minutes and it's on demand. So it's it's a very high value proposition there, but a very low commitment, which a lot of companies like.
And maybe you can walk us through a typical HR scenario that you deal with. Are you dealing with workplace harassment? Are you dealing with, what kind of things do you deal with?
I mean, it could be that unless it gets within too much, like in the legal weeds, and then I would always recommend an employment lawyer. So I don't offer legal advice. I would offer sort of light HR employment law advice, but I get calls for, um, being in the room when an organization, typically a startup, when they have to fire their first employee and they just don't know how to go about it. So I could help them with the communication plan, with the run of show for the day. Um, I've actually been in the room to be the HR person to let that person go. I've been asked to coach on performance issues, where I'm coaching the manager because they just don't know what to do with the person. So they're basically like typical kind of HR things that if they don't have an HR professional there, then they would call me, and that's where I would step in for that.
And is this something that you have wanted to do from a young age? So, for example, when you were 18, you were thinking, you know what I really want to do? I want to work as a fractional HR professional. Does that check out with you?
It does not. And I'm going to tell you now that I still tell my kids that I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I had a degree in psych I didn't know what I
Where
wanted
did you
to
go to?
do with it.
Where can you just
I
tell us where did you go to school?
Yeah, so I have a degree from York University in Toronto, undergrad degree in psychology. Um, just really didn't want, originally when I was really young, I wanted to be a veterinarian because I love animals. I just couldn't, I didn't want to be the one to have to put animals to sleep, to be honest. I just didn't have it in me. So I didn't go into vet. And I just sort of heard about this thing called, at the time, like human resources. It was switching over from personnel to human resources. Thought it was interesting. I'm a people person and had to deal with people. So I sort of, fell into it. Got a degree in HR management. Worked at Sony for my first job where they hired me as a co-op student, and then they kept me on there. And that was pretty much how I got into HR. But then I got married, had kids, and I left the HR world. I left the corporate world. I ran a business on my own, selling educational toys for many, many years. But within that, I had to do a lot of HR stuff, and I had to recruit, and I had to train, and I had to deal with compensation and let go people and have really difficult conversations. And once my kids were older and old enough to where they didn't need sort of like a stay-at-home mom with her own business, I decided to step back into the corporate world and got hired at a startup, a very young startup, actually as the director of sales because I was only employee number 6. So we certainly didn't need HR there. But once the business started booming, I just went to the CEO and said, I think we're going to need HR. I can put my HR hat back on right now. And that's where I've been ever since. So,
And was there like a difficult time in that journey? What was the hardest part of becoming an HR professional?
um, I don't think becoming the HR professional, but revisiting it, you know, 20 years later, where I thought I knew everything, but yeah, I didn't actually appreciate how fast things move, especially in the corporate world. And so when I stepped back into HR, I knew the gist of things, of course, like I knew all the recruiting and compensation sort of, um, like the academic pieces of it, but I didn't realize how much culture had come into play at the time because that wasn't a thing back in the day. Nobody cared about culture. It just wasn't even a word when I first started my career. So had to adapt a little bit in terms of culture, in terms of the new generations that were being hired in and what their expectations were, and sort of balance old school with new school. So I think for me, that was the toughest transition. But I also had teenagers and I also understood how teenagers and younger people thought. So it gave me a leg up, I guess. And, once I got that, then it's been great.
Do you have an anecdote of maybe the most peculiar HR situation that you've had to
Oh,
deal with, and
God.
or something funny that
Uh,
you're able to share, or not,
I
or is
mean,
everything very?
no, it was so uncomfortable. And looking back, I trying to even remember how we solved it, but someone came in to talk to me because the coworker that they sat beside had terrible body odor. And, uh, coming to HR for this. And so I said, it's not an, it's a, I wouldn't say it's not an HR issue, but it's a learning opportunity for you because I think you need to have a difficult conversation. And this is what I mean sort of with the sort of younger generation that weren't used to having these challenges and these, difficult situations that they were in. And so I remember, speaking to the employee who was coming with the complaint and said, step one is you're going to have this difficult conversation. And then sort of step two, if it's not helpful, then I'll step in. And so I don't think I ever did
Yeah.
have to do it, but I
Was it
just
a matter
remember
of just telling that person, go to Shoppers Drug Mart,
it.
purchase some deodorants and apply it?
So I was lucky enough that I worked in an organization where it was coaches, like health coaches. And so the employee that came to me was a coach as well. So she didn't really need me to coach her on how to have the conversation because she was having difficult conversations with people all the time in terms of helping them improve their health. So I said, just look at it as that. Like if this was one of your clients, how would you coach them into this? And as far as I know, it went successfully.
This
So
sounds like, I mean, forgive me, but this sounds like a scenario straight out of a kindergarten class where someone says, "Oh, this boy smells,
I,
and we need to
yeah.
deal with him." And then the teacher steps in. And
So most of the
do you
HR
find it's very
issues,
elementary? Like this is all kindergarten
a
stuff,
lot of it is, unfortunately. He said this or she said this, and I didn't like this. And, my method might not be the same as other people, but I try to empower my employees to help solve their own problems. I know HR people that would never do that, that they'll be like, oh, no, 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 I have to go in and help them solve that problem. So, I don't think either one is right or wrong. I just do what works for me. It's how I raise my kids as well, not trying to solve the problems for them, but have them solve their own problems, just like we had to when we were younger. And I mean, I think back to my time at Sony when I was, it was my first like real corporate job. And if something would have happened, if I would have gone to my manager to say that, like this happened, she would have been like, why are you coming to me with this? Go deal with it. Like it would have been
right?
so cut and dry, which I never even would have gone to her because I know what her response would have been. But now it, it, it's a different time that we're in right now.
Do you think that people being on their phones a lot these days, do you think that or maybe it's a younger generation thing where they are afraid to deal with face to face conflict? Do you think that makes a difference with HR? Are there more problems today than there used to be a few decades ago?
I don't know if there's more. They're definitely different. Look, I think back in the day, a lot of things were ignored that should not have been ignored. A lot of behaviors that were, you know, maybe glossed over a little bit and people were protected a little bit more, which also wasn't the right thing to do. But in today, we're just getting different problems that come up. They could be minor, they could be major. But like I said, like for me, I think one of the issues is people not being empowered to solve their own problems. So they run to HR in order to solve it. And I think that's where some of the challenges come up. And yeah, so again, like, I have kids in the corporate world. I try to, and, if they'll come to me and say, this happened at work and I don't know what to do. And so I try as best as I can to coach them to try to solve it on their own first. And then if it's become something more major, then I'll say, okay, this is an issue for HR. You have to go to HR for this. So.
Do, do you think this is something that can be taught in schools, how to avoid these kinds of issues? Because it seems like from what you're saying, there's constant problems at work, and it's he said, she said, or this person smells, or this person is playing the radio too loud, and all these problems. Can we have a course in high school teaching these social skills, or are we
It's
just doomed to have problems evermore?
It's a great question. I think what's exacerbated most of these issues was COVID and people working remotely and a lot of younger people starting their careers. Like it could be that the first 2 years of their jobs were remote. And then they would all of a sudden be in an office and just didn't know how to work that way because they've always been remote. So, and I believe in the hybrid model. I think it's a successful model, but one challenge is that these sort of younger people, that it's their first job, it's their first role out of university or high school or wherever they're coming from, and they're they're sitting, they just don't understand some of the office etiquette. you know, they could be leaving dishes in the sink because that's what they would do at home, and they'll be able to wash it later. Or, yes, listening to music a little bit louder than they're supposed to. Or, I know during the soccer, like during the World Cup, people having their phones on their desk with the game in the background, which is, I guess, fine, but some people were playing the sound as well, which was an interesting, sort of
Right.
thing. So, and if you're in if you're in your own office and you're doing that, okay. But if you're in close quarters, which a lot of offices are, it was a little troublesome. So,
Right. People
yeah,
just, I mean, it seems like it's human nature to, when you're kind of, locked into a confined space, people have issues, whether that's roommates or,
yeah,
I guess, married couples, or you name it. There's a quote that I've heard. I wonder if you've heard of it. It's life is simple, people are complicated,
for sure. Yes.
right?
Well, I
Does that
think,
does that resonate with you?
yeah, and I used to say that, and I actually sometimes say this, all, like, still say it now. It's along those lines where most problems are simple to solve. They're just not easy.
It's simple, but it's not easy. What advice would you give young people starting out? Career advice. What would you tell young people?
Um, it's a great question because I have young people. I think, to be honest, I think the number one thing is to be curious, is one, like a big one. Um, I think, ask questions, don't just assume things. Never come like with a judgment, like always come from curiosity, especially when you're dealing with a manager that you might be having challenges with. And so instead of, going and just complaining and you're doing this and this and um, just come from curiosity. I'm curious to understand why you thought that this was a good thing to say, or why you thought, right? Like, come with that kind of
I'm curious to
mentality.
know why you choose not to wear deodorant, for example. Just
Exactly.
curious.
I'm just curious.
Right.
No, for sure. And but I would coach people like that all the time. I just had an on demand. A client asked me, because she actually came to me on behalf of her son, but it was still an appointment, and her son was having major issues with a brand new manager. So the old manager, uh, wanted to really, um, coach her son to be the next level up. So he was doing something and wanted him to be like a developer or something like that. And this new manager came in and, without any warning at all, said, "No, you're going to be this developer. You're going to be a developer." But then threw him into the role with absolutely no support and no training and no education, and he's struggling. So she said, like, "What do I do?" Because every time he asks for help, she said, "Nope, you're on your own. You're on your own." So, I only got one side of the story. I always take everything with a grain of salt. But I said what he should do is, write an email, first of all, so it's in writing, and just email the manager and said, "I appreciate that you had the faith and trust that I could do this job. However, I'm curious to know how you think I can be more supported in the role so that I can be successful and help the organization as best as I can."
Absolutely.
Right?
I
So
can't
not
help but
coming,
yeah.
yeah. I was just gonna
Yeah.
say, like, not coming from, "You're not helping me and I don't know what to do," and, but really coming from the fact that he's appreciative that she did have this faith in him, but he's curious, because, and coming from that question, like, "I would like to know how I can get more support so that I can help the organization," and put it in that kind of
Right.
corporate.
I can't help but notice there's a dog in the background and your husband's walking back and forth,
Yes, he is.
disturbing your meeting. I wonder, would that be considered an going to HR to try to
Not
mitigate that?
not in these days, not with work from home. During COVID, we had kids climbing over employees, and, I think we've gotten used to this background, these
Right.
background things.
Life happens
Life
when you're making
happens.
other plans, right?
We just work through it. It's all good. If you're not
Right.
flexible and adaptable, you cannot be in HR. I'm telling you right now. So take a good look. If you want to be in HR, make sure that you are flexible and adaptable to all situations.
You're flexible like the willow tree. Nothing will break you.
Exactly. You don't know what's coming your way. And every day that you think, oh, today is going to be a good day, you just never know what's going to happen on that day.
So you must be a great people person.
I'm a people person.
Yeah.
I'm definitely, it's one of my superpowers, I would say. Yes.
You don't fly off the handle easily.
I do not. You can ask my kids. They would agree to that. They're like, "You're too chill, Mom. You're too chill."
That's amazing. Well, listen, Hyla, this has been an interesting conversation. I usually say, where can people follow your work? But I wonder if you need people. You're not really looking for a plug here because you already have your position, or is there anything that you want to plug?
Listen, I do HR on demand. Like my niche is really founders, startups, because they're the ones that typically need. They don't have a senior HR person there. But even, a junior HR person that's looking to be mentored or coached, I'm more than happy to help. So yeah, anyone can reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. They can find me there. And
All right.
happy to help.
All right. So again, thank you very much
I think
for
my husband
meeting.
was the star of the show, no?
Yeah, your husband, your husband and the dog. He really wanted some airtime there. I think he was jealous that he wasn't on the podcast. We're going to have to get him and the dog on the podcast next
You
time
can definitely reach out to him. He would be happy to be on this.
Yeah,
so.
I think that was his ulterior motive. Is he didn't need to walk the dog. He just wanted to be on the podcast.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Hyla, thanks so much. Enjoy there at the cottage. Go
Thank you.
Take a dip and keep doing what you're doing. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
For sure.
All right.